if you knew that there was something that teachers didn't know a lot about, and it was really connected to student reading outcomes? And what if this thing that you discovered that teachers didn't know a lot about, when they learned more about it, they actually got much better at their teaching and students got better with their outcomes? Would you think that was important to learn more about that area? That's what I want to share with you today. Researchers for over 2 decades have been noticing that pre-service teachers, experienced teachers, teachers in Canada, teachers in New Zealand, teachers in the US, graduate teachers, undergraduate teachers, all across the board, all across the world, many teachers lack knowledge in fundamental early reading skills about things like phonemic awareness and phonics knowledge. And yet, that's the bad news. The good news is that when teachers get a little booster, sometimes as little as an hour and a half of information, they start scoring well on these tests, and then their students perform better. So it's a little slice of knowledge about reading that a lot of us haven't been prepared to teach. And yet when we get the training, our students are going to do better. So that's what I'm all about today. When a teacher is a good teacher, she or he has good pedagogical content knowledge. Have you ever heard of that big mouthful? Pedagogical meaning having to do with teaching or instruction, and content knowledge having to do with the information, the knowledge about a particular content area. In this case, it's about reading. And just because you are a reader doesn't mean that you have good content knowledge about reading or that you have good pedagogical content knowledge. So the content knowledge in this example that I'm going to be talking about tonight would be that you know that the word phoneme refers to individual speech sounds. That's content knowledge. But it's another level above that to understand how to teach something related to speech sounds and when it's even relevant. That would be the higher level of pedagogical content knowledge. So if we don't have the foundation, like not even knowing what phonemes are and how many phonemes are in words, then it's going to be even harder to have the pedagogical knowledge, the instructional knowledge about how to help kids with that beginning early information that they need to access the code. So pedagogical content knowledge is essential. Why is this knowledge so important? So say a student comes to the word milk. Okay, imagine the student's reading the word milk, and the student first attempts the word milk but says Mick, and then they say, oh, Mike. So if you are a good reading teacher and you have pedagogical content knowledge, you need to know what are the different things that student may have gone through to make that error so that you can adjust. So if they started out with the word milk but they read it as Mick, what was that first error probably because of? Probably because they didn't have the phonemic processing to include that LK at the end. L-K. And so knowing that the adjacent consonants are hard to blend, knowing that, you would know that's probably why they dropped out the L in milk and went with Mick. Okay, but then why'd they end up with Mike? Well, actually, it was a pretty good thing for them to do. If they've missed the L, and then they know that Mick isn't really a word unless it's like short for Mickey, and then the context of the sentence that doesn't fit, so then they might switch it to a word that they do know, which is Mike. And so they switched the vowel. So they did all those things, potentially, most likely, because of some phonological or phonemic blending problems. And then they made a phonics switch to try to make meaning. So then as a teacher, we need to know to go back and say, oh, let's get that. Don't forget the oh. Try this again. And we encourage them maybe by covering up the last sound and getting them to put the first 3 sounds together. Milk. There's multiple steps that the student went through, and so the teacher's got to go through multiple steps to be a wise intervener, to give the proper feedback. And all that teacher is doing in the context of that one little error is what's pedagogical content knowledge. So you got to know the stuff at the bottom, just the basic content knowledge. You got to know that blending is an issue and that 4 sounds are harder to blend than 3 sounds. And you got to know what's a phonics problem and what's a phonemic awareness problem. Those are just the basic content knowledge. And so one of the take homes after we get to the expertise that you're going to develop tonight, one of the take homes is a lot of us don't have good foundational content knowledge in phonemic awareness and phonics. Now, not many of you may be here if you've been following Reading Simplified for a while because we've been teaching this, but a lot of our teachers of education are not teaching it. I did not receive it in my master's, and I didn't receive that information when I got a teaching license as a reading specialist. I learned this on my own elsewhere. Sometimes people think, well, you know, how many sounds are in a word? That's kind of esoteric, but pedagogical content knowledge, it does matter. And so this is kind of really basic, but just want to make sure that we've got this established. You understand the differences between letter names, letter sounds, and phonemes. So like the letter name, the letter N, we would say the letter name. It's how we label letters, but it doesn't really help so much with reading. In contrast, the letter sound, N, is helpful to read words like nut and sun. And then phonemes is another concept. That is just what we just talked about, the individual sounds in words, individual. So in black, BL is not a thing. It's not a phoneme. It's not a unit because B and L can be separated into more fundamental speech sounds. B, ul, ak. So don't link BL, bull, and ak, or bull, ak, because we want to have each sound separate, each phoneme separate. That's super important for our beginners or strugglers. So phonemic awareness is the perception of those individual phonemes. Phonological is more global, and it means perceiving any sounds and words that could be more like the syllable level, or it could be like the rhyme unit. The other big topic for tonight is phonics regularity and phonics irregularity. So we need to know what is a pattern that's predictable and repeatable, and we need to know what things pop up in our language that are irregular, that don't follow the main pattern, that cause kids to stumble. So for instance, in the word done, I am done with my homework. Well, the O and the E that's separated, normally what sound would that be? That would be O as in note or home, right? That's the word home, the word note, that follows phonics regularity, where O separated E is almost always the O sound. But in done or gone, the phonics is irregular. It's not what you would expect. There may be a couple examples of words that follow that pattern, but most of the time it's a different pattern. So we need to know the difference. Because when our kids read the word done as done, we shouldn't tell them, no, it's done. Or, you know, we need to tell them, you know, that's so close. That O and E is normally, you're right, that is normally O. But this is a funny word. Just got to remember this is and done, not what you expect. We've talked about this before, but in case you're new, this is a way of thinking about phonemic difficulty. So CVC words are the easiest phonemically, 3 sounds. It's easiest to segment the word hot, hot, and blend hot, or manipulate hot, hit, hat, mat. Those are easier than 4 sound words where the consonants are at the end, like CVCC, like milk. And so we move up the continuum. Those, so hat would be here for CVC, milk would be here, and then a little harder word, CCVC, a 4-sound word with the adjacent consonant at the beginning, like stop. It's harder phonemically to blend or manipulate. CVCC, it's 5 sounds, that's even harder. And then the hardest, 6 sounds like strand, okay? So that's one thing to keep in mind. Then we also need to think about the code and phonics because it's so tricky. So Diane McGinnis taught me this. Other people have broken it up this way, but not a lot, but it helps me. I think about the basic code and the advanced code. Basic code, it would be consonants, which are pretty predictable, short vowels, which are pretty predictable. They are almost always what one would expect, and consonant digraphs like CH or CH or TH or CK. That's basic, okay? Those words are easier for the beginner because there's not a lot of variability. Advanced code is more tricky. That would be long vowels because they can be so many different spellings. One sound can have more than one spelling, and one spelling can have more than one sound, like the OW can be ow or O, the ow in cow and the O in snow. So that's advanced code. So we're going to break up our candy into these different along this timeline, or this continuum.